The Tree of Life depicts shared ancestry and tells us about evolutionary history. This information can be used to help us address many pressing contemporary issues, from fighting diseases to preserving a healthy environment to ensuring the availability of food for our tables.
For example, if we're interested in finding new genes for resistance in a crop plant, the best place to go for finding those resistance genes is not to any random species of plants, but to the closest relatives of those crop plants. And that's really a valuable source of information. Which wild species have genes that could be of value for inserting into our crop plants to make them more resistant, to improve yield, to allow them to be cultivated in areas outside where they currently are.
The Tree of Life provides scientists with new tools to advance human well-being. It is enabling rapid identification of the source of many of the deadly diseases now emerging around the globe.
One of the biggest increases in studies of phylogeny has been in the health field. Emerging viruses, for instance, emerging diseases. There's lots of diseases that we're seeing for the first time up here in humans, or that we're identifying for the first time in humans. Almost all of those, one of the reasons we're able to discover them so rapidly is through phylogenetic analyses. And so in past, before phylogenetic analyses were available, then the pathogen had to be isolated, it had to be cultured. It was a very difficult, time-consuming process that would take many, many years. Now, when a new disease is discovered, we can often amplify the genes involved in the pathogen, sequence those genes, place it into a tree of life, and immediately understand how it's related to other organisms we know about, what type of virus it is, and there's suddenly a wealth of biological information about it.
As the Earth comes under increasing environmental pressures, the Tree of Life is helping scientists working on the front lines of conservation to prevent extinctions.
Lonesome George is the last individual of a species of Galapagos tortoises that lives on the island of Pinta. He's a 70-year-old male that was found in 1972. Until recently, Lonesome George was considered the last of his species. I am using the tools and the concept of the Tree of Life in my work to address conservation genetic questions. We started go around the different islands and collect blood from these giant animals and extract DNA and compare the DNA of the single individuals to each other to construct a phylogeny in which we could place Lonesome George among its relatives. We have found one individual which shares 50% of its genes with Lonesome George. This means that the genes from the same pool where the genes of Lonesome George come from are not extinct. There is a high probability that they can be used to start a breeding program. What our work with Lonesome George signifies is that there is hope even for the last individual of a species.
The Tree of Life is also helping us to address threats to global biodiversity as part of our struggle to maintain healthy ecosystems.
Functional ecosystems, ecosystem health, depends upon a diversity of organisms being there and carrying on what people have talked about as environmental services, keeping our air clean, keeping our water clean, and maintaining diverse ecosystems is a big part of that. So knowing what the relationships for organisms are helps us understand what makes healthy ecosystems.
The Tree of Life is deepening our knowledge of all forms of life on Earth. And this will allow us to take better care of our planet and ourselves in the years to come.